Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. As I mentioned in the daily financial news this morning, I have an extra special guest with us joining this morning. And if you've watched any of my interviews with him in the past, this is an individual that I put on my personal Mount Rushmore of real estate investors. So let's welcome Bill Allen to the show. How you doing, sir?
Good, Michael. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. Thank you again for giving us some time today on One Rental at a Time. I thought you put out a tremendous post on Facebook that we will dive into. But before we do that, tell everybody about seven-figure flipping and all the amazing things you do in your group, and then we'll get into the question at hand.
Sure. I own a mastermind group that I actually bought from a guy named Justin Williams like 2 years ago. I was a member before that for, I don't know, 3 years, like paying member and coach and mentor in there. And we just help other wholesalers and flippers primarily kind of grow their business and just the next step for them. So I have a couple like live events. We do all kinds of stuff. It's fun. I really got to the phase of, I think, helping others and seeing others succeed is really enjoyable for me. So it's 2 years now of me owning and running the company. It's been a lot of fun. So
yeah, folks, and if you are in the wholesaling and flipping business, you need to check them out. You have a Facebook group. You have all these kind of free things that you do. But again, the last live event I went to was amazing, and the amount of quality. And again, you just give your business away, as do all of the presenters. So shout out for doing that, leading by example and giving back, Bill. It's amazing to see.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun meeting you and hanging out with you in person at that event and stuff like that. So I want to have a conversation after this about ours this year.
You got it, brother. So, hey, let's talk about a topic you put on Facebook. And again, I love following what you're doing. And that is, hey, I am where I am, but if I had to do it again, right, thinking about the Great Recession, at least from my standpoint, you might do a few things different. So I've certainly thought about that a lot. I get asked all the time. So I thought we'd just bat this around. And why don't you go ahead and share the ideas and some things that you might do different this time?
Yeah, a couple caveats I'll give is, I have a background in the military. I'm in my 19th year of flying airplanes and helicopters for the Navy. So I don't get to fly anymore, unfortunately. That last flight has already happened. So I'm moving on to the admin for the next 2 years to retire.
To get your 20,
but,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But in 2008, right around there, I had just bought my first house in 2006 that I was living in San Diego. And then in 2009, I bought my second house. So I wasn't a real estate investor during that time. I wasn't active investing. So I'm not the kind of person who lived through that, who lost everything and came back. So there's a lot of people out there that have some great opinions that I listen to, but I'm an engineer. And so I really like numbers and data, and I like watching that stuff. And so what I do is I don't necessarily always think that, you hear it all the time. Past returns don't dictate future. Past history kind of doesn't dictate future returns, right? But I think all the data and things that are happening and you're seeing, and the way that people react or feel can be similar or can be kind of extrapolated into the future and where we think that we're going to go. So nobody has a crystal ball. Everybody's going to look back and say, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, or I thought something like that might happen. I was on a cruise with a guy who had a ton of Bitcoin like 5 years ago and was telling me about it. And I was like, nope, not me. And that guy's got millions of dollars right now in cryptocurrency, and I have zero. So I also knew the guy who started Under Armour when I was younger in Maryland, and sure, could have bought into that IPO and stock and things like that. So there's all these should have, would have, could have. So There's my kind of caveat of my history and background and where I am. I've only been investing in real estate primarily for the last 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
So for me, what I think that we need to do is, a lot of people, they kind of they don't use data and history they use more emotional and pain and stories and stuff like that to kind of remember what things, or what they were projecting in the future of what's going to happen. So I think if you do really look at that and look at the data and figure out who to follow, like who is actually telling the truth with no agenda, right? No agenda that they have of the kind of stuff that they're telling, because everything is usually news, media is all driven over fear, right?
Yes.
So every headline that you could possibly read right now is based on fear, because they want to draw you in. And then you can actually get maybe a third of the way down that article. It's like, this isn't even anything about the headline or anything that I came here for. So I think there's a couple things recommendations that I'll give to people, right? And I also don't think anybody's really got it figured out where we're going either. So, but we can have these hypotheses and then determine using data kind of how to change and adjust. So I think that you can make money in any market. Up market, down market, level, average market, you can make money in this. You just have to figure out what that is. And so I think in the past, I was constantly trying to kind of bang a square peg into a round hole sometimes and be like, I'm a wholesaler or I'm a flipper. And this is what I do. And this is what I'm really good at. Instead of kind of looking and saying, well, I'm really a business owner that uses people, manpower, marketing, and sales to determine how I make money. So what can I do in this market right now to figure out how to make money? And then what kind of tools do I have and resources available to me that I can use to pivot or make a change and start doing something different? And so I think a lot of that thinking right now is kind of where you need to go as a business owner, and stop saying like, I only wholesale, I don't flip, I don't raise money, I don't do all these things, it's just not me. And you need to figure out how to learn those skills so you can pivot. Now, I wouldn't say that you need to do everything at the same time either. I think you do one or two things that you do really, really well and learn the skills that can give you an advantage in any market. And then the second piece that I wish that I studied a little bit more in the beginning was trying to figure out like how to use those tools and resources to my advantage. So I'll use like owner finance as an example, or rental property as an example, or a lot of different things that I just kind of was like, I'm really not set up for that. Well, what would it look like if I was? So what would I need to do to kind of project that in the future and be ready for that, and also be at the cutting edge? What I find at Flip Hacking Live is our event that we run. Every year we put this on and I set up speakers at that event. And every year we talk about what's working for us now, which is really past, right? Yeah. When somebody's on the stage presenting about how much money they made with a specific marketing channel over the last 9 months or 1 year, they're really talking about how they did in the past. So by the time you find out about it and you jump into it, you might be too late, right? So I want to figure out all the time, how can I be like when the cheese moves, if you guys ever read that book, right?
I did.
I want to figure out how to be on the cutting edge of that. Okay. Instead of be late to the party. When it becomes news and it becomes mainstream, then I'm probably too late and I may have missed the boat. I can still get some scraps, right? But I may not be, making the biggest returns that I have. So I don't know. That's a whole big dump of some of the things that I think that I'm trying to do better right now as a business owner in not only my real estate business, but also inside our mastermind group in 7-Figure Flipping. Is what are people already doing and what can we do a little bit differently to be on that cutting edge and try some new stuff. And we just launched something new recently and it was very beneficial for us and our members. So there's a couple of ideas that I have.
Yeah. So yeah, this is going to be fun. So I've been buying, I worked full-time job. I was a landlord, right? That was my thing. And we bought our first place in 2002. So I'll round it up to 20 years, right? So there's a couple of things that I've seen over 20 years that kind of fits in your bucket, right? I had to get good at, for me, I was buying off the MLS, right? Not wholesaling, no letters, no texting, no VAs, none of that stuff. I didn't even know they existed in 2002, and they may not have existed. I have no idea. But that's where I kind of cut my chops, right? I bought, I don't know, 90% of everything I've ever bought was out of the MLS before we retired, right? I didn't know there was another way. But however, when you have time to look back, I think there's a couple of things that you kind of touched on that I want people to realize I think are skills everybody should look at, because you're right, you can make money in any market. The first one is I have made the most money when I can successfully identify a motivated seller. Now that might sound obvious, but for my first 8 years of buying, I read the books that were written in the 70s, in the 80s, and that motivated sellers. I never saw one. You don't, generally speaking, find motivated sellers in the MLS. You certainly don't find motivated sellers in the MLS when it is a buyer or a seller's market like we've seen the last 18 months. It doesn't exist. When junk goes for retail, you're not going to find a motivated seller. However, that is changing, right? And I relate this back to the market I saw in 2010, where everything in the MLS was a motivation because the seller was a bank. But what we're seeing now is we're seeing a housing slowdown. We're seeing buyers retreat. They're afraid, they're burnt out, they're taking vacations, whatever it is. However, some sellers need to sell and they're seeing, oh my God, I don't have an offer in 3 days, and they're not over asking. So again, one of the things I teach or I talk about all the time is motivated sellers are out there. It's your job just to find them, whether they're in the MLS or whether you're marketing direct or you're reaching out on the phone or whatever it is. Real estate is owned by people. People have life events like divorce, death, retirement. There's all kinds of things. So if you can find motivated sellers, that is a skill that is well compensated. That's my first thought.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. 100%. It all comes down to that. I bought, it's funny because we're the flip flop. I bought like 90% of my stuff not off the MLS.
That's funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But in the beginning, when I got started, I was buying off the MLS. I had a real estate agent. I was buying rental properties. That's what I was doing too. And then I started, my real estate agent told me that you could flip this house and make more money. And it's funny because at that time, it was like, I thought that there were motivated sellers on the MLS, and usually it was expired listings. That's what I was looking for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that to me was a motivated seller, but it's really not. They just had maybe a bad agent, or it was the time, or something. I don't know. They priced too high, all that stuff. And I think that goes along with the point that about educating yourself and learning a skill that's out there, and taking the time, potentially in a market like right now, where if it is too expensive for you to get in, or it's a time where, and I've kind of been beating on this drum for a little while, but I also like taking action and not just learning. But there is a time where if you're sitting on the sideline right now and be like, I'm saving up money to deploy, or I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, like the best thing that you can do, in my opinion, is to find someone who is doing what you want to do, and they're giving away information, typically, like they're giving it away. And don't get confused by going and following 10 or 50 different people that are doing all kinds of different strategies. Like find that one person that you resonate with, their character. If you're on this YouTube channel, it's probably Michael, right? And so just figure out what that is and learn from them, and then go take action from that, and take the time to learn that thing. Because I didn't understand what, like, I heard all this stuff. People are buying from motivated sellers. I was like, what is that?
What is that?
They're marketing direct, and they're pulling lists. And it was so confusing for me. I was like, I get on this software called List Source, and I don't know what filters, and this person told me to do this, and this person told me to do that. And it can be very, very confusing. Yeah. So my advice is to find that person that is doing what you want to do, and just stop thinking that you already know, or you know better than them, and just do it. Like, just do what they say. Yeah. And that's and try it out and take action. So that's the skill that I learned. Was I followed somebody who taught me how to market to motivated sellers, what to say on the phone, and then I didn't wait to know it all. I just waited to know the next step that I needed.
Yeah, let me talk to the people that are telling. If you're telling yourself you're sitting on the sideline stacking cash or building reserves or whatever you are, and doing nothing else, you're going to miss the boat. Now is the time to learn. Right? Find that one person, get focused. To me, I don't know of a better analogy. I know it may not resonate with everyone, but it's a golf swing to me, right? You don't roll out of bed, never playing golf, and you go play Pebble Beach. It's not going to end well. You got to sit on the driving range and swing that club 1,000 times. And then maybe, you'll shoot 100, right? So practice, right? I talk about getting a buy box, focus, daily disciplines, 20 minutes a day, practice. So you're so right. So that is dead on. The other thing I want to talk about is deal structure. You mentioned seller financing. One of the things I did not appreciate until 2010, when the banks told me no, right? So again, let me set the stage for you. It's probably 2007-ish. We have 800 credit scores, 7-figure net worth, 6-figure incomes. I walk into a bank to buy a real estate deal that's half off, and a bank tells me no. I did not know that was possible, Bill. I had no idea that a bank could say no to that kind of qualified buyer. It happens. The banks have the money. The banks make the rules. And I would tell you that today, watching financing, bank lending is getting tighter, not looser. I bring this up because, again, your ability to create win-win transactions with seller financing, especially if you get a frustrated landlord today and you could buy their entire portfolio, you could save them on taxes. You can structure it where they still maintain income, and you could get an amazing return on your money because you could have a low down payment, or heaven forbid, no down payment. So again, seller financing, understanding the ins and outs of the accounting. You don't have to be an accountant. The logic is pretty straightforward. But yeah, your ability to create win-win transactions with seller financing is a skill everybody needs to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. You can even pay more than what other investors can pay, right?
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of things, and one of my mentors, Andy McFarlane, he used to do all this seller financing training, and he's talking about the cash hammer. We all just go in there as wholesalers, flippers, landlords, whoever we are, and we just throw the cash hammer down. Like, here it is, 50 cents on the dollar. This is my offer. This is the best I can do, right? Yep. And if you can have some other tools in your tool belt to go in there with, maybe it's subject to, maybe it's owner financing, maybe it's the fact that you can raise money, like you're really, really good at raising other people's money. You don't need a lot of money to do this. You can raise money for these deals. And all of that, those skills are really, really important. And that's one thing that I remember. I was like, I'm going to watch this training when I have time.
Right.
When I have time. And I was doing deals, but I probably left a lot on the table at that time that I could potentially own right now, have in my portfolio, have in my IRA, 401k, all of those things that I don't, because I was using the cash hammer for a really long time. And now I'm constantly beating that drum for my team and my staff, all my salespeople that are out there making offers for us. You got to have other strategies, because right now it is very, very difficult to find deals.
Yeah.
And if we're competing head to head against somebody else that only knows the cash hammer and we know all these other tools and tricks, we can pay more than them. We can make a little bit, we can listen to the seller and find out what they want and need.
Yeah.
And all of those things I think are really, really important for an investor.
That's the biggest thing I want to tell folks is you've got to listen to the seller, right? And again, I'd actually tweak that conversation. I believe most wholesalers, and again, I say this as an owner who gets a lot of people reaching out to them. A lot of you are reaching out to me, treating me like a seller. I would argue that that's the wrong, at least initial strategy. You should treat me like an owner first, and then a seller if I give you the right indications. Yeah, coming at me with a cash hammer at a 10-day close, you don't know a thing about me yet. That's probably not a very good idea.
I like that, because the more property that you own, like I own a bunch of houses too. And so I get these text messages, I get the texting, I get the cold calls, I get the ringless voicemail, I get the letters, I get the postcards. And the other thing that I'll share with a lot of you guys is, if you are an owner or a landlord or any of those people, or a flipper, and you own these properties and you're getting this stuff, like figure out how that speaks to you. So we talked about motivated sellers. Like the other thing that I think is missed a lot in real estate investors is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't understand that every business is marketing and sales, every business, especially ours. So if you can learn marketing, like I'm doing a small group accountability for marketing for our mastermind members right now. And I've got like 30 people that are on a weekly call with me every Wednesday morning. And I'm actually teaching, I went into it teaching more digital marketing and just showing them, like, as we market for our live event, watch me while I do it. And I'll kind of teach every week of some of the things that I'm doing, and you can learn. Because I thought they would want to actually sell tickets to the event. Well, most of them want to raise private money, find sellers, and find buyers with the same techniques. And they are. And what I'm realizing is they haven't set up their avatar. They haven't looked back at the last 80 to 90% of homeowners that have sold to them and said, what's the age range? Is it a male or a female? What's their position? Like what's going on in their life? And then you can take that and say, all right, where does that person hang out? How do I get in front of more of those people?
Yeah.
And saying, I just want owners with equity, and I'm going to do a blanket list call text to all of those people. Well, what if you could dial that in, save a bunch of money and time by networking with people that also control that avatar, whether it's maybe it's a nursing home, or it's a moving company, or it's a mail carrier, or somebody like that, where you can go out and they're constantly helping you find people. And then you can figure out also where do those people hang out, so I can maybe do some free advertising or marketing to them. Or maybe there's a little like a newspaper that they read or something like that. Like, where does that avatar hang out? So on the marketing side, and then obviously what to say and how to say it, like you said, treat them as an owner before a seller, and actually talk to them and understand them a little bit. So I think on the marketing side, there's a lot that we can learn from digital marketers, from people outside the real estate world, to bring into this and say, okay, I can actually get a lot more efficient with my time, the way that we market, the amount of money that we spend, and things like that. Because what I went into it with one expectation, that all the people that were joining were affiliates for me. And then what I found out is they really need this. Like they need this marketing training that I'm getting from other marketers outside of the real estate world to help my business, 7-figure flipping. But I can take it for them, and everything can be just adjusted for the motivated sellers that they're looking for. So like one example was, why aren't they networking with like pawn shop owners, or gun shops, or like we talked about, nursing homes and things? Like where does your motivated seller hang out? What happens to them? Do they have yard sales, estate sales? Are you in those Facebook groups posting all the time, telling stories about the last homeowner that you helped?
Yes.
Things like that. Like just dropping different marketing things out there and breadcrumbs for somebody to come back and reach out to you. And you never kind of know when that's going to hit. Or maybe you're starting a YouTube channel. I mean, we're here on YouTube. You guys are watching this. Maybe you're starting a YouTube channel about yard sales or garage sales or estate sales, and you're talking about this and like actually giving away information where your avatar is going to come watch that stuff, subscribe, and then they know that you helped out this last homeowner. So instead of just hitting them with the cash hammer and I want to buy your house, like add value to their life and to them as a person. And then eventually, that might be your exact avatar that you're looking for. So think about things a little bit differently is what I've learned over these last few weeks actually too, in talking to our members.
Yeah, and then the last thing, kind of closing on this, because we both have a hard stop at 9:30 Pacific, is the one thing I wish I would have learned earlier and appreciated during the entire 20 years of investing is private money, right? I know it sounds funny or counterproductive to some folks out there, but there is, if you find a good enough deal, there's money out there, but it starts early, right? You don't just wake up, find a deal and go find private money. At least for me, you've got to document what you're doing, become the expert, show people that you have a history of finding good deals, you know what you're doing. And then, oh, by the way, money just flows in that direction, right? I've used private money lots of different times, a lot in 2010, several times the last couple of years, but private money can be a game changer to your business, but it starts with legwork up front, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody told me that, so everybody says, if you have a good enough deal that money will find you, right? Well, you have to get that deal in front of the right person at least. So you have to know who to talk to and how to say it. So yeah. I totally agree. Private money changed my entire business. I was buying, I would save up 20%. I would buy a house on the MLS. Yeah. I would fix it up and I'd rent it out. And then I would have to go save money again. That's what I did. And so I'd buy like one house a year. And I remember selling one of my cars. I had like a really nice 2003 supercharged Mustang. Wow. And I was like, I'm going to sell this car to buy another house. Yep. And I used the money from the car to put a 20% down payment on my next house. And it was a mistake that I made because it slowed me down. But if you just learn how to do that, like I was able to buy, the reason why I was able to like grow a wholesaling business really fast is I flipped a lot of those houses or wholetailed a lot of them. I just cleaned them up and put it on the MLS because I could close. And I was competing against a lot of people that couldn't close. So I was able to buy a little cheaper. I was able to make bigger returns on the flips and still wholesale too. So it allowed me to kind of grow my bankroll by using other people's money to help finance that. And I started with a 50-50 partner. He financed every single thing that I did. Guy in California had a couple $1 million. We did 7 or 8 deals together where it was just a 50-50 split on the flips. Got me operating capital, taught me that there's a lot of money out there, changed my mindset. And then I just went and raised money at like 6 or 7%. Yeah. And we don't do deals together anymore. I just raise money at low interest rates and give people the returns that they're looking for. And just like you said, ask them what they want, listen to them, have a consultation with them, become almost like somebody that people call. Like right now, if somebody gets a large sum of money, they call me to say, what should I do with it? Mm-hmm. And it's not, hey, I want to give it to you, but I just give them advice. Yeah. And I'm not a certified financial planner. I'm none of that stuff, but I'm somebody that other people think does smart things with my money. And I treat them really, really well. And if they ever invest in a deal with me, I take care of them. Mm-hmm. And if we lose money, they don't. And we do what we say we're going to do. They know, like, and trust us. And if it's not, and I think the biggest thing for me, the advice that I can give anybody listening is when you're dealing with private money and other people's money is don't always say that my deal is the best deal. Mm-hmm. Like, so a lot of times I just had a call with a guy yesterday and I said, hey, I know a guy who's actually raising money for a fund right now. I actually think it would be a great thing for you to do. It sounds like it meets all of your needs. And I said, we probably won't have another multifamily deal for a month or two. Mm-hmm. We don't even have anything in the hopper right now. We make offers every day, but we just don't have anything right now. And I don't want your money still on sidelines for 2 months because I don't want to be greedy.
That's awesome. Well, folks, this is why Bill Allen is on the Mount Rushmore of investors across the country, in my opinion. Bill, how can people follow you, be part of your world? Do you have anything exciting coming up that you want to announce here?
Yeah, you can go to sevenfigureflipping.com, but we have an event called Flip Hacking Live. Is it okay if I talk about it for a minute real quick? You can go to fliphackinglive.com, check it out. It's October 14th, 15th, and 16th in Orlando. It's in person. We were virtual last year. It's in person this year. We don't have a huge venue just because of COVID. So they're still kind of spread out a little bit down there. So I think we're like 850 people or so. We're about halfway there on our ticket sales right now. It's exciting. But I love it. It's the only event that we really have that's kind of open to the public. Other than our mastermind meeting. So come check it out. It's almost like a mastermind meeting that we give all the goods, everything, everybody on the stage is doing, 6 or 7 figures in their business. And they, like Michael said, they just pretty much give it all away.
They give it all away. It was amazing. It was crazy.
And this year we're going to talk about the concept this year of how I'm putting the event together is what's now and what's next. So like I talked about, we really always present about like you're kind of behind the curve, like what's what was happening, and we're saying this is working for us. And here's the data from the last 9 months, 1 year, right? And so there's a little bit of flaw there. So now we're going to talk a little bit about, still going to talk about a lot of that stuff, what's working in the market, right? It's important. But what are we changing and what are we thinking about in the future and what's next for us?
I like that.
And so if all those business owners can share some of that with you, then you can decide what kind of nuggets you're going to take and move into, the end of 2021 and early 2022 with that.
Very cool. And one more time, what's the URL address?
Fliphackinglive.com.
Fliphackinglive.com. Thank you very much, Bill. This has been a lot of fun. Thanks for catching up.
Thanks for having me.
You got it.